Welcome to the Pathways to Prosperity podcast, where we explore personal, professional, and financial success stories of top achievers. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome. Today we're here with Matt from Yardreach. He's currently helping outdoor living contractors scale their businesses to 8 figures through paid acquisition and inbound marketing. How's it going today, Matt?
Very well. And yourself?
Great. So, Matt, could you tell us a little bit about a quick snapshot of your business right now? What does your company do?
Sure.
Where you're at right now?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we'll get into my history a bit later, but just for context, I've been in the sales, marketing, and lead generation space for 9 years. Typically worked for large corporations, helping scale their marketing efforts. But now I'm taking all that I've learned in those 9 years, and I'm helping outdoor living contractors scale through paid acquisition and inbound marketing, as you mentioned, Terrance, more specifically on Meta and Instagram, because it's a really, really good channel. So essentially what we do is we help them with advertising. We generate the leads. I have an in-house call center that qualifies those leads based on our client's criteria. Then if the lead is qualified, we book the consultation for the outdoor living contractor, so that all my clients really need to do is just show up to the consultation and take over the sales process from there. So
Awesome.
It's a great market. We've only been doing this for about 10 months now, but we're growing very quickly, very optimistic, getting great results for our clients. So really happy right now, and we're in a good position.
Okay. You had mentioned you've only been doing this for about 10 months. What did you do previously, Matt?
Yeah, so it depends on how way back do you want me to go, Terrance?
Whatever you want to share with our audience.
Okay, cool. So just to give you some more background, right? So Matt Silva, born and raised in Toronto, Canada. Both my parents are Portuguese, so I'm actually first generation here in Canada. So my first job, if you can believe it, it was at the age of 7. I was a newspaper boy. And it's hilarious because I was literally getting paid pennies to deliver newspapers to different houses. That's what the compensation structure was per house. I think I was making like 2 or 3 cents. So that wasn't a big deal because I didn't mind actually traveling with my cart and delivering newspapers. But the issue with that job was that when they shipped the newspapers to me, they weren't already assembled. They gave me each individual page, so I had to put it together. So I was literally getting paid pennies to do all this work. But it was a good job because I was very young. It taught me what hard work meant. It made me very disciplined. And my parents were really proud of me too, which brought a lot of joy to me even at that young age. So that was my first job, and I learned a lot through that job. And taught me what hard work really meant, even at the young age of 7. And I did it up to the ages of 8. And then from there, my first real job was actually at McDonald's at the age of 13. Now, they had an age requirement of 16 minimum, but my cousin was one of the managers there, so she kind of slipped me through in. And I was a cashier at the age of 13 working in the food court of one of the major malls here in Toronto. So it was high traffic, and I learned so much at that job, right? Like being disciplined, following instructions, interacting with people, and just being very quick on my feet. Because when you're a cashier at McDonald's, people want their food ASAP, right? So that was a really, really good job. And at the time, I was making quite a decent amount of money for like a 13-year-old. I was making like $500 to $600 a week. And I used that to purchase all the things I wanted, which was like TVs and like gaming consoles. Even at that young age, I never really had to rely on my parents to purchase the things that I really wanted to do. I just worked really hard for it. And then the first job that I got that really I started making some good income and I started learning some serious skills was at the age of 16. So when I was in high school, there's a retailer here in Canada called Future Shop, which was now purchased by Best Buy. Now, the difference between Best Buy and Future Shop was that at Best Buy, you had a high base pay, but no commission. At Future Shop, you had a low base pay, but commission. So I was in the home theater department. So I was selling like thousands of dollars worth of home theater products. And as you can imagine, given that you're on commission at Future Shop, that's where all the sharks went to go work, right? Because they wanted to make commission. I remember on days like Boxing Days or like back to school days, I would make anywhere from like $1,000 to $3,000 as a 16-year-old. And at that time, to me, that was a lot of money. And it wasn't just the money, but it was the sales skills that I learned in working with these sharks that have been doing this in the industry for 10 plus years. So that was a really, really good job for me because I was in downtown learning very valuable skills like communication, sales, and discipline. And just being surrounded by these sharks that I've been networking with that taught me a lot of skills as well. So that was a really, really good job. I actually paid for all of my university through that one job. My parents didn't pay for any of
Oh,
my university, even though they offered to do so. I said, no, don't worry, I got it myself. Which then transitions to university. When I was in high school, I had an accountant, and he's like, "Hey, if you want to make six figures, you need to be a CPA or CA, as it's called in here in Canada." But then I took my intermediate accounting course, and I absolutely hated it. I'm like, "No way am I going to be an auditor or a chartered accountant." So I went to school for finance. I did not end up doing accounting. I actually transitioned into investment banking, so mergers and acquisitions, and then private equity. I did that for like 2 years, but it was not for me. Like these guys were making a lot of money, like especially in private equity, like second year analysts were making 300 to 400K a year, but they were miserable. They were working like 100-hour work weeks. They're always traveling. They weren't happy. I'm like, listen, this is not a life that I want to live. So I remember at that time, I was like, okay, I'm like, what can I do that I can make six figures, but not have to work, 80 or 100-hour work weeks? And tech sales came up. So for those of you who don't know, like tech sales is you're essentially selling software to B2B companies, and these contracts are typically 6 to 7 figures, even 8 figures, depending on the client that you're working with. So I transitioned into tech sales. I worked at a startup here in Toronto called Uberflip. It helps like marketers with demand generation, and that's kind of where I started officially in tech sales. I would highly recommend for anyone who's young and looking for a lucrative career, if you can deal with sales, tech sales is such a fabulous career because you learn so much, you learn valuable skills, and like the top earners in tech sales are even making 7 figures plus, which is ridiculous. So if you're really good at what you do, it's a very, very lucrative career. But anyways, when I started at the startup, uh, when you're in sales or tech sales, there's really two main positions. You got business development reps, and then you got account executives. So business development reps are the ones that are just cold calling, setting up appointments for the account executives to close. Essentially, kind of what I do for you, Terrance, as my firm, right? Like we set you guys up for the opportunities, and then you
yep.
take it over to close, right? Except you're doing this in a different setting, which is B2B versus what you and I are doing is B2C. But you learn a lot as a BDR. You're cold calling, you're getting rejected all the time. You're learning how to message and get people's attention and convince them to jump on a call. So it's a very, very tough role, but highly rewarding once you get good at it, both from a compensation and a skills level. So I did that at Uberflip, and I was the top business development rep for like 3 quarters straight out of a team of like 30. Then I got quickly promoted to an account executive where I was closing. I actually closed a lot. I was the top AE for 2 quarters. And then what happened was, I remember I was the top AE, and I asked my employer there, the CEO, like the CEO and me were close because this organization wasn't that large. A startup, it's like maybe like 200 employees. So I knew the CEO because when I first started, he was like the king of foosball, right? And I'm really good at foosball. So he's like, when he learned that, he's like, "Oh, do you want to play like a 1-on-1?" And I beat him. And after like since then, like we became good friends because he always wanted to beat me in football, but he never did. But anyway, the reason why I bring this up is because I had really good quarter. I did well. I asked for a raise. Unfortunately, they didn't give me the raise, and I said, "Okay, well, guys, if you can't give me a raise, I'm going to go somewhere else." Which I think they realized it was a mistake. Like I think a lesson too is like if anyone's running their own business, like if one of your top producers ask for a raise that's reasonable, like just give it to them, right? Because if they leave, the cost of you finding another top shark is just going to be way more than whatever that person's asking in most cases. But anyways, that happened. Then I went from Uberflip to Adobe. And here's a lesson for you all as well. I was an account executive, but Adobe said, we're not going to hire you as an account executive because our account executives have 10 plus years of experience. You want to work here, you got to cut your teeth, you got to prove your worth. You're going to be a business development rep again, which means I went from being an AE to a BDR. And most people will see that as a step back. But for me, I saw that as a step up because I'm moving into a different arena. I'm going from the small leagues to the big leagues, and I got to prove my worth. So I didn't have the entitlement. I didn't have my nose up in the air. I'm like, you know what? I'll do the work to show you that I'm worth it. And then once I show competence, give me that promotion to an AE. So Adobe was a really, really good experience for me. I was a top business development rep across Americas, which was like a team of 220. So I was a top rep for 3 months. Sorry, not 3 months, 3 quarters. I then earned the promo to an account executive, and I got lucky because this is during the COVID times. So during COVID, Adobe had a ban on external hiring, but they really needed a rep. And then normally I would never get that position because normally they hire account executives with who are like twice my age, right? Who have a lot of experience, but they say, you know what, Matt, given the times and given that you showed competence, that you were a top rep, we'll give you a shot. I did really well in that position. And just to let you guys know, account executives at Adobe or any tier one um, tech tech company or software company, you're making like at least 300K on plan, right? So, and the top producers are making over $1 million, but you can only count those guys on maybe like one or two hands. But most AEs are making anywhere from like 150 to like 400K. So again, it's a very, very lucrative career. You are on commission, but it's on a 50-50 split. So I did that for a bit. And then Accenture approached me. And Accenture, for any of you that don't know, is like one of the largest marketing and technology consulting agencies across the globe, 700,000 employees. Very, very big organization. Like they have a policy on how to use the washroom properly there. Like that's how big and bureaucratic it is over there. But they offered me a really good position. They said, hey, listen, whatever you're making at 100% the plan at Adobe, we'll make that your base. And I was like, well, geez, like that's that's hard to say no to. So
Yeah.
I did Accenture, and I was managing the partnership. And then what happened was I had so much time on my hand. Quite honestly, it was an easy job. Like I can literally do my job in like 3 hours. And that was like the true definition of like golden handcuffs. Like you would think I would be happy, right? Making all this money, working only 3 hours a day, but I wasn't. I was miserable because I was bored and I didn't have a challenge. Like I'm the type of person that like I like to chase, I like to build, I like to do things, right? And I learned a very valuable lesson that the money wasn't that important, the outcome wasn't that important. It was the journey, the process getting to that I really truly enjoyed, and it would make me feel fulfilled. So given I had all this time in my hand, one of my colleagues approached me and said, hey, I know a pool builder in Toronto who's really good at building pools and managing a crew, but he's not the greatest when it comes to lead generation and sales. Can you help him out? So when I met the guy, he was spending like $6,000 on like Google Ads. I said, hey, just give me 50% of that budget. Let me show you what I can do on Facebook and Instagram because that's where my expertise are. And he killed it. I think like it's on my website, but he spent, I think like 11K in ads, and he was at like a 620K in sales and like 5.4 million pipeline. I was like, wow, you know what? This was a little too easy. I'm like, did I just get lucky in this particular market, or am I actually good at this? So I started reaching out to other contractors across North America, and they started getting really good results with Facebook ads. And I said, hey, you know what? There's a really good opportunity to help outdoor living contractors scale with Facebook and Instagram. So I quit my very comfortable corporate job, and that's kind of how Yardreach came to be. So I went on a long rant there, but that's kind of like my story a little bit there.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely varied. I guess it isn't that varied, mostly in sales and, and tech from that part. And you seem to have stayed in that avenue for sure. There's a lot of
Yeah.
competition in your space. What sets you apart, Matt?
Yeah, so there's a lot of competition, but I think skepticism is very high in the online marketing space. And the reason for that is because anyone can call themselves an agency if they have a laptop and access to the internet, right? So typically in my space, a lot of the agencies, they're typically younger folks, right? These are people who it's like their first business or their first job out of college or university. So a lot of the agencies, they actually don't know really what they're doing. They'll spend their clients' ad spend to learn, and then some of them are actually smart enough where they learn quickly and they get results. But a lot of them actually churn their clients. It's a big issue in the industry. I think the churn rate is like super, super high. So what sets myself apart from a lot of the agencies out there, at least dealing with outdoor living contractors, there's a few things. One is, again, I got 9 years of experience. Two, we don't just generate the leads, we actually qualify the leads for our clients. And that's a big thing because a lot of the clients or our clients, they're in the field, they're busy, right? Some of them are owner operators and they don't have time to call leads, chase them down, qualify them. So we go the extra step where we qualify and we book the appointments. And that's an offering that's quite rare or unique to do it well in my industry. Um, so yeah, the experience, us qualifying the leads. I think the third two is our go-to-market strategy where we don't do everything under the sun. We just work with outdoor living contractors, and all we do right now is Facebook and Instagram ads. So we're quite good at it, right? We understand how the platform works versus other companies. They work with different niches, they do all these different services, and you can't scale your business when you do that, right? Unless like you have like 230 employees. But like my recommendation for anyone who's starting a business is choose one buyer persona, one service, one niche, and get really, really good at that because that's going to help you scale. Once you start adding all these different services in these different niches, you can't get really good and it's just going to be a huge headache. So I think those are like some items that set us apart from the competition.
Nice. If someone listening to us right now wanted to get into the tech space or sales side of, similar to what you're doing, what recommendations would you suggest for them to get started, or what tips would you give them?
Yeah. So first, get familiar with the industry. So there's a ton of content on YouTube now with people documenting their journeys in the B2B tech sales space. So just start watching some of those videos to get a better understanding of what the industry entails. The second thing would be pick a niche. So pick something that you're somewhat interested in, right? Because you can sell all kinds of things. You can sell things to nonprofits, you can sell to marketers, you can sell to salespeople, you can sell to anyone under the sun. So choose a niche that you're interested in because you're going to have to learn this industry inside out in order to be successful in it. And then once you have some background information, then I would get a LinkedIn profile and start messaging some of the hiring managers or the sales managers in the companies that you want to reach out to because you're going to see the job posts, right? But if you just apply with your resume, you're not going to stand out because they get hundreds of requests, right? If it's a good company. So my recommendation would be once you know the niche that you want to get into, research the companies that are some of the bigger players in there, and then create a LinkedIn profile and then find the sales manager and then reach out to that person on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm looking to join your organization in this position. Here's a little bit about me. Here's why I think I would absolutely crush it for you. And just kind of show them, like, they don't care that you have experience or not. They just want to see that you're eager, you're hungry, you're competent, and that you're going to crush the role. And the good thing about sales is that a lot of people don't know how to sell, right? But what they're looking for is just they want someone who's young, who's energetic, who's competent, and who's hungry. And then they can teach you to sell. But those are the things that they can teach you. And if you have that burning fire desire and you show that to them, it's just going to allow you to get a role in these positions a lot easier versus just blasting your resume to all these online directories.
Absolutely. So Matt, can you tell us maybe what one or two of your biggest challenges are that you've had to overcome in your career?
Yeah. Well, in sales, okay. So for me, I love accountability. Okay. In the beginning of my sales career, I'll be like, oh, the territory they gave me was garbage. It's not the best timing. The sales engineer I'm working with doesn't know how to do good demos. The business development rep that I have doesn't know how to prospect. And it's always like me pointing the finger, right? But that's a terrible strategy and frame of mind because once you point the finger at someone else and you say, this is the reason why I'm not successful, you lose all control. Okay. So one of the biggest shifts in my mind was just taking accountability. Anything that happens to me in my life that's negative, it's my fault. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got hit by a car. I should have been paying attention. I did this. It's what could have I done to prevent that from happening before, right? And even if something negative happens in your life, as long as you learn a lesson, it's not a failure, right? If something negative happens and you're like, oh, well, I could have done nothing about it. It's just, it is what it is. Then that's a failure. And that's something that you need to reevaluate. So I would say not so much a challenge, but a big mind shift was just taking accountability for my life in all aspects of my life, right? It's hence one of the reasons why I started a business as well, right? Because if anything screws up in my business, me as a CEO or the founder, it's my issue and it's my fault, right? And I really like that.
Mhm.
So I'll say that's one. And then let's see, the second, you said challenge, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, let's see.
I love what you said about the accountability side of it, though. I mean, it's for so many people, and it kind of feels like America now. It's easy to blame everybody else for what's going on and what's happening in life. And at the end of the day, you're the only one that controls your life. And like
Exactly.
you said, someone hit you. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be in that position to get hit again. What could I have done differently? And for me, as I've gotten older and being a little bit older than you, it's I've learned that I could point the fingers at everybody all day long. It doesn't change what happened unless I change it.
Yeah,
So I love hearing that that thought process and getting that understanding at an earlier age that there's always things that you could have changed to not be in that position. So
100%. 100%.
It
Yeah.
it sounds like things are going well for you and your business right now. A lot of
hmm
our guests are looking towards the future and how they can create passive income to enhance or even replace their income. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I did, right? I was still working a full-time job, but outside work hours, I would work on my side hustle, which was Yardreach at the time. So I think it's definitely something that people should further explore. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like you don't have to have the website, the logo, everything figured out. What you do need to know is like, what are you skilled at and what problems can you solve for other people? And then talk to them about it. Be like, hey, if I can solve this problem for you, is it worth X amount of dollars, right?
Hmm.
And in most cases, it is.
Yep.
So like what I would recommend people do is, and some people like when they hear that, they're like, well, I'm not skilled, right? Like I don't know what I would do, right? But and if you're not, if that's truly, I actually disagree with that. I think a lot of people have skills that they don't know that are valuable to others. They just don't know that other people are willing to pay for them because they're not speaking to people, right? Um, but if the case is that like, hey, listen, like you really don't have a skill, then figure out the problems in a niche that you're interested in. Like just talk to them and be like, what are you guys dealing with? And they're gonna say, and like if, in most cases for me, lead generation is always a problem. Regardless of the niche in the business, everyone always wants higher quality leads, right? And that's something that thankfully I stepped into. So it was easy for me. But for you guys, like talk to your potential customers or just people and business owners in general and figure out like what are their problems, like what do they need help with, right? Like in my industry, leads is an issue. Also finding quality crews, right? Like helping them source quality talent that's loyal, that's another issue. Unfortunately, I don't help with that right now, but that
Yeah.
could be a really good idea for one of you guys. So yeah, my recommendation is develop skills that people are willing to pay for. And if you don't know what those skills are, you need to start talking to people and figuring out what their problems are.
Nice. Nice. As we're wrapping up our interview, what exciting plans or initiatives do you have in the works for the next 6 to 12 months? I want to hear this part.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. So, for me personally, one of the reasons why I started a business was not just for the financial, I guess, not obligations, but like, yes, starting your own business is very lucrative if you scale it well, right? I feel like true wealth is built when you're building your own assets that are bringing in cash flow versus working for someone else. But um, what am I excited about? I think the reason why I brought that up is because one of the reasons why I started this, or I started Yardreach, was because I want location freedom. The issue with me working at Adobe was that they're like, hey, listen, you got to pitch this client in Canada. So you need to fly here and you need to be here. And I don't care if you have a wedding or whatever it is, like you need to be here, right?
Mm,
So now that I have my own company, I'm able to travel the world. The first thing that I did when I quit my corporate job was I booked a ticket to Argentina and I've been in South America for 8 months. Now I'm back in Toronto. So what am I excited about is just having the flexibility and the freedom to be anywhere in the world and generate income through my laptop, right? So
yep.
soon I'm regrouping because I've been traveling for 8 months, but I want to go back to South America for an extended period of time, learn the language, And I think this time it's going to be more enjoyable for me because when I did it last time, I was grinding. I was working 8 to 12 hours a day because I was pretty much doing all the work, right? Now I actually have employees, so Yardreach is growing where they can do a lot of the heavy lifting for me so that now when I go back to South America, I'm not going to be glued to my laptop for 10 or 12 hours. I'm actually going to be able to experience the culture and have a life. But that's just a lesson to all of you, right? Like when you're starting your business, it's going to be hard work for a long, long time, right? A lot of people say like, I want to be my own boss. I want to have the freedom to do X, Y, and Z, but you're not going to have that freedom, at least in the beginning. But as you get employees, then you're going to start to like experience the fruits of your labor. So that's one thing I'm excited about. Uh, the second thing is Yardreach is growing, right? So right now, like our goal is to be the #1 Facebook ads agency across North America for outdoor living contractors. And I think we're on our way to do that. But eventually I want to start expanding to other services like building websites, doing Google and doing other services. And that's just going to unlock like so much more value that we can bring to our clients and make them more successful. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And one other goal that I have for Yardreach is that I want to generate 1 billion or source 1 billion in sales for my clients and partners. And I think that's going to be like a very noble goal because if we're going to help our clients scale, it's going to make a big difference in their lives. And of course, we're going to be very rewarded for it.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, I definitely appreciate your time with us here today and for sharing some insights and tips with us. If
Okay.
people would like to connect with you, what should they do?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. So if you type in Matt Silva or like the URL is Matt Silves, you can also connect with me on Instagram at Matt Silves, so MATTSILVZ. Then yeah, I'm always happy to connect, have a virtual coffee, and learn more about you and share any element that I can as well.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Matt, here today and for sharing your story. And you have a blessed one. Thank you.
You too, Terrance. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Pathways to Prosperity podcast. Got a success story to share? Visit pathwaystoprosperitypodcast.com/guest and apply today.